Hello there and welcome into another JayMac Snack. Now I want to answer a very important question. Does the lawsuit filed by Texas against other states in this 2020 presidential election, does it have a chance? I think a lot of you are wondering about that. I was wondering as well, and so I've done a lot of research and I'm prepared to share that with you. First of all, this is from CBS, a quick explainer about what's going on.
Another is in Texas, where the Attorney General is suing to contest election results in 4 battleground states that helped swing the race for President-elect Biden. Republican Ken Paxton is suing Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. He claims their expansion of voting access due to the pandemic violated federal law. Paxton is now asking the U.S. Supreme Court to block the states from voting in the Electoral College count next week.
Now, I don't know if they realize what's going to happen if they do win, because if these ballots get tossed, we're talking about mail-in ballots, then what happens to all the Republicans on those ballots who won down ticket? What happens to them? That's just a side note compared to the question, does this lawsuit have a chance? Well, again, just like with COVID, I've been watching the different experts. I've been reading the different experts and going back to the sources and reading the lawsuit itself. And I'm going to tell you, and I also remember I have this, a magic 8-ball given to me by Amy Iverson, my former co-host, and it tells me that this lawsuit is dead on arrival. And I'm not the only one who believes that.
So I spoke to our CBS News election law expert, David Becker, and he said there is a less than 0% chance that this ends up at the Supreme Court. He said that, or that they take up this case. He seemed to think that there was no merit to it. There were a lot of legal deficiencies and would be, in his view, quite an infringement on states' rights. Now, the Supreme Court is the place where disputes between states are settled, so you can see why Attorney General Paxton went there. The comparison that David Becker, our election law expert, made said, this has about as much merit, possibly less merit, than Florida suing California, saying that the Tampa Bay Rays had won the World Series instead of the Los Angeles Dodgers, and asking the Supreme Court to weigh in on that. So in his view, and in the view of many other election experts out there, this case doesn't have much of a chance, if any, of being picked up by the United States Supreme Court.
Now, if you don't want to listen to the mainstream media, that's why I go and I find other sources and I do the research myself. It's interesting to note that Ken Paxton is currently being investigated for securities fraud. You don't think he could be fishing for a pardon, do you? Now, that wouldn't explain why some of the other states have jumped on board with this lawsuit and why the Trump team has also said they're going to join this lawsuit. But basically, they are suing these states for the same reason that states had challenges, legal challenges, within their state courts or within federal courts. This is all based around the state legislatures, like in Pennsylvania, changing their mail-in ballot rules. So, for example, going from a no-excuse ballot or from an excuse ballot to a no-excuse ballot, as I've described in previous podcasts, and also trying to change the date for when votes can come in. You should know that Texas changed their rules for early voting as well in the face of the pandemic. So they're not innocent here. But this is the exact reason why I think that these cases are dead on arrival. Because these cases have already worked their way through the state courts in each state. And that's where they belong. If the state legislature has done something wrong, it is not the job of another state to sue and to point it out. It is the job of individuals who have standing in those states to file lawsuits and make complaints and legal challenges. So we saw that happen in Pennsylvania, and we saw it go all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, nah, one sentence, no dissent. We're not going to hear it. And that basically means they're letting the Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruling stand, which, as I've explained to you many times, is because even if the state legislature violated the state constitution, those people who didn't like it needed to file a complaint or a challenge in a timely manner, and they didn't. In Pennsylvania, it's been a year and a half since they did this. They made this change before COVID even came into play. And so the states are like, or the courts are like, why didn't you challenge this before? In fact, Republicans in the state, you actually ran using this system, and many of you won. And now, because Trump lost, you're going to challenge that? They say it doesn't work that way. You have to file lawsuits in a timely manner, and they did not. So that's what the Pennsylvania Supreme Court said. So, in my opinion, this is just a rehash of the state court decisions that have already been made. And that's the first reason why I believe that this thing is dead on arrival. The Supreme Court has already said they don't want to hear it. So why would they hear it when it's coming from another state? Now, many people will tell you, well, they have to hear it because the Supreme Court is the only court that can adjudicate one state suing another state. Well, that is true. What is not true is that they have to hear it. They don't. You may hear people saying, well, it's been docketed, which means they're going to hear it. No, that's not what it means at all. When you file a lawsuit in any court, they put it on the docket and they give you a docket number. That's how you track the case. So pending cases are on there just like cases that are currently being heard and cases that are closed. Those are docketed cases. So at the time of recording this, which is on Wednesday evening, the 9th, they have not decided to hear the case. Now, they gave the other states, the states who are being sued, until tomorrow to file their briefs. And again, that doesn't mean they're going to take the case. They let each side file a brief, and then they get together and decide if they're going to hear the case or not. So anyone who's telling you that they've decided to hear this case, that's just not what's going on here. And the final note that I would add about this is that it seems wholly inappropriate and against conservative Republican values, what they're trying to do. I thought we believed in states' rights. I thought we believed in a constitution which says each individual state gets to decide their own electoral process. Once again, we see that the Constitution is something wonderful and should be fought for, and we stand on and we die for it until we don't get what we want. And then it's an inconvenience that gets in our way. This is another example where I just feel that Republicans have lost their way. And they're so desperate to keep Trump in office that they are willing to look past the very tenets of the Constitution. And I actually personally believe that this is just a show of faith. People trying to send a message to Donald Trump that they will be loyal to him to the end. Just like that tweet that went out from the Arizona Republican Party. Are you ready to die for Donald Trump? Stop it. You're supposed to die for the Constitution. Not one man. Not one individual. Come on. This is insanity. It's absolute insanity. What's amazing to me is I've been watching on social media, it's like this big giant game of whack-a-mole. First, it was going to be the recounts that overturned this election, and the recounts didn't. Then it was going to be the Kraken lawsuits filed by Sidney Powell, and that didn't happen. Then it was going to be the court case in Pennsylvania going to the Supreme Court, and that didn't happen. And now it's going to be this lawsuit filed at the last minute by the state of Texas. What's amazing to me is you thought all of the other ones were going to work, and you were told over and over again they wouldn't, because they're not providing evidence. And there's still one question that I can't get any diehard Trump supporter to ask. And that is, why is it that all of the evidence that you're seeing being presented by Rudy Giuliani in the court of public opinion, why isn't that evidence being presented in the courts? Well, that's because the courts, they actually have ramifications. And they actually verify information. You can say anything you want in the court of public opinion. And so if you're not presenting that information to the courts, then what is your play? Well, I think it's because you're trying to fool people. And you're trying to gin up more loyalty and create a larger group of people that will believe anything you say and do anything you say. But the bottom line is at every turn, like whack-a-mole, you're so excited and this was going to be it, and it's just not. My prediction is, the A-ball tells me, the Supreme Court will not even hear this case. If they do, they will unanimously decide to throw it out. That is my opinion at this moment. We can all mark it in time and see if I was right. With that, please take a minute. If you like what you hear on this program, you want to hear more of it, well, here's how you can make sure you can get more of it. Become a monthly patron, $5 or more a month, or make a one-time donation. Scan either one of those cool-looking flow codes that you see on the screen, or click on the link in the description of this broadcast wherever you are watching and listening. And please let me know in the comments what you think about my opinions and the information that I presented for you here today. And with that, more JayMac Snacks to come.